All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for the launch of the new series for the Reading League Pennsylvania, our Expert in Residence series. We are so honored to have you here with us this evening. Joining us as part of our board this evening is our Vice President, Dawn Brookhart. She'll wave to you. Hopefully you'll get to see her, as well as Erin Amy, who is our secretary, and new board members, Jody Jackson, Michelle Trostle, and Amy Sell are here with us this evening too. So we're very excited to have all of you here this evening for this wonderful and really important presentation. I know that I get emails, and probably you do too, every day, talking about the needs not only of our students who are in those early grades for foundational skills, but our intermediate level students. So we're so excited to kick off our series, Words Matter, Intermediate Level Word Study with the Mechanicsburg Area School District team. And at this time, they're going to introduce themselves. In relation to questions, as you might have heard Michelle share, the Reading League Pennsylvania team will be keeping track of the questions in the chat. And if we see a lot of them, we may gently ask to stop for just a moment to ask those questions, or perhaps we'll wait till the end of the session. This session is being recorded, so we strongly encourage you to share it with others as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Michelle Trostle.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We are excited to be here and to be able to share with you the wonderful things that are happening at Mechanicsburg. So I wanted to tell you quickly before I say anything else, we do have some handouts for you. And at the very end, I will be sharing a bit.ly link so that you can access those handouts. We know that we're all so excited as educators and we want to find out all the things right away, and we didn't want you to look ahead and find any of the surprises. And so you'll be getting that that bit.ly link at the end. Okay. So there are 4 people on our main leadership team for our intermediate word study initiatives. Originally, people were calling us the word nerds. And then I think it was Grace that had the idea to call us the word queens instead, because that just felt like a much more fitting name for us. So here are the 4 word queens. Joining us tonight, we have Grace Adams. Give a little wave, Grace. Grace is one of our grade 4 teachers, and she is actually the grade level coordinator for ELA for 4th grade. Katie Reisinger is the reading specialist that's currently serving 4th grade. Unfortunately, she was unable to join us tonight. She has some family obligations. Also joining us, we have Linda Bachman. Give a little wave, Linda. Linda is currently our supervisor for elementary education. When we started this journey, she was our elementary literacy coach. And so now we say she's kind of a word queen, but she's also been promoted to word prime minister because she has some additional duties now. So we really appreciate Linda's insight. And then I am Michelle Trostle. I am the Reading Intervention Coordinator for Mechanicsburg. I support grades K through 12, teachers and students to ensure that everyone has the best reading instruction experience possible. So Grace is going to take it over. Take it away, Grace.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're so excited to get to share our little slice of a word learning journey with you this evening. And really, this whole journey began a few years ago when our district reorganized our elementary programs. So we were having our 1st through 5th grades housed in one building. And as of a few years ago, we've split to have all of our 4th and 5th graders come together in one building. And that's where I currently teach, in the 4th and 5th grade building in our district. And so students in our district worked through the Foundations program in grades 1 through 3 to help build their knowledge of spelling patterns and understand that the way words work. And this is a really structured and systematic instructional program if you're familiar with Foundations. However, when students were coming to our building in the 4th and 5th grade level, our word work approach was a little less consistent across the grade levels in the building. So we did have specific content that we wanted to cover in each grade level. However, the how and to what extent that was being covered really varied, as it was left kind of to the discretion of each teacher. So in the spring of 2021, I took a graduate level course that focused on literacy leadership. And one of the capstone assignments for that class was to determine a literacy need in our building and then plan and implement subsequent sessions to address that need. And so word work kind of kept coming up in my mind. So I created a survey to send to my colleagues in my building, which is 7th, 4th grade teachers and 7 5th grade teachers. And the results overwhelmingly aligned with this nagging thought that I had in my mind that many teachers felt that word work was an area that really could be improved, specifically in regard to that consistency with our content and our goals and our approaches. So we're really striving for a more guaranteed and viable word work program at our level. So after collaborating with my teammates and identifying this need, I knew that the potential of this work would also impact lots of other stakeholders in our building. So I first reached out to our then literacy coach, who's now, as Michelle introduced, our supervisor of elementary curriculum, Linda, who you'll hear from in a little bit. And also our reading specialist, Katie Reisinger, who Michelle also introduced, just to kind of hear their thinking about whether this was a viable endeavor for us to pursue. And after hearing their thoughts, I checked in with my building principal, who was definitely on board with reviewing our approach to word work. And then Linda had a conversation with our assistant superintendent to also get his feedback as well. So our administration overwhelmingly supported an exploration into word learning at the 4th and 5th grade level. And this would happen during our district's kind of built-in professional time. So we have specific professional development days, Act 80 days. And in our district, we have kind of an hour set aside each month to further curricular goals. So we were really looking to use some of that built-in time to grow our knowledge of word learning and our practices at the intermediate level. So then our first exploration happened back in the spring of 2021, and we got together as a 4th and 5th grade ELA team to grow our knowledge of the Foundations program specifically. So we really wanted to better understand the word learning that our students experience before they come to us as 4th and 5th graders. And so this session was led by our reading specialist and resident expert on Foundations, Katie Reisinger. So Katie is now our building's reading specialist, but she used to teach 1st grade, and she also was previously the reading specialist in a 1st through 5th grade building. So when she worked with the younger grades, she taught Foundations. And again, this is that resource that our primary buildings are using for word learning. So in this kind of kickoff word learning session, Katie provided kind of this overview training for us at the 4th and 5th grade level that included the proper articulation of the 44 sounds of English, different procedures to tap and blend words, and tips and tricks to remember some of that Foundation specific verbiage. So this training really allowed us as a 4th and 5th grade staff to grow our knowledge and have a better understanding of the word learning that our students are bringing with them when they get to us. And we know that it's important as often as possible to try to remain consistent vertically so that our students can reserve their thinking power for content and not learning new routines or verbiage or codes.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you this evening. So as our third step, we really wanted to take some time, knowing that we were at very varying levels with our understanding, to really deepen our understanding of word learning. So we identified 4 articles and we paired that with a discussion protocol. We used the consensus jigsaw where we numbered off and we had each group working with a different article, one of the 4, and teachers first began by reading Transacting with the Text, and then they came together with colleagues that read the similar text. They talked about what resonated with them. And then as they were revisiting the text, they looked at some important points. And through their conversations, they came to a consensus on what were the 3 most important points to share forward with the whole group. So after the groups met, each group took time to share out. And then as the other groups were listening in, they had an opportunity to also capture those important points and thoughts from the other teams. And we did that. In the next slide, you'll see that'll also be a part of the resources within a consensus jigsaw organizer. So there's our organizer that each team used. Then in step 4, we really wanted to work on casting a vision, asking ourselves, what does the ideal student know about words when they head to 6th grade? So we thought about that, and we're going to ask you to take a moment now and in your mind, think about what would you want students to know, understand, or be able to do as they're heading off to grade 6. So think for a moment. Now we're going to engage in a waterfall chat. So if this is new for you, what we're going to do is to list some ideas. So you can put a thought down. It could be something a know, a do, or understand. Then use a comma. You can list your next idea. And we'll take about 30 seconds for you to list ideas again by comma, because we're going to hold off from hitting the return key just yet. I'll signal at the end of the 30 seconds to do that, and then we'll have all of our responses to fall in at once. All right, so go ahead and in the chat, just start making a list of some things you'd want students to know, understand, or do by the end of 5th grade. And then we'll hit our return here in about 30 seconds. We'll take about 10 more seconds. Okay, go ahead and hit that return key. Let's see, morphemes and suffixes and spelling. Connected of words, seeing morphology, etymology, vocabulary. Excellent thoughts. Well, we did the same thing. And on this next slide, we'll share some thoughts that came from our team. And I think as you're looking at the ones that come across through the chat, you'll see many connections to our thoughts as well. And hoping that our students would be able to break apart words, that they'd be able to demonstrate, a desire to learn more words, be confident in their spelling. Many people are mentioning spelling and vocabulary. And building that curiosity so that kids can really be word conscious, because we know we're never going to be able to teach them all the words that they need to know. So having that vision in mind, we then focused on 3 key ideas. Thinking about, first of all, we're tossing so many different terms around, as we'll talk about in a moment. What are we going to call this venture we're on together? What's our purpose and how are we going to define it? And then what are our beliefs that are going to ground us in all the decision making going forward? So we used the Jamboard and we met in diverse groups again, breaking apart in mixed teams, and we talked about each of those 3 questions. So in the first question, we were looking at what to call this, and each team had a Jamboard. As you can see here, we merged them all together, and here were the different names that were pitched out: word analysis, study, investigating language, and so forth. So we really examined then as a bigger group, the nuances in the different titles. And at the end of the day, we landed on word study. In thinking about that next question, how do we define it? What's our purpose statement? Again, teams work together And I'll give you a moment. Here are some things that they came up with as we pull them all together then on one Jamboard page. And what we did was we pulled those thoughts together. We had some bigger conversation, gave feedback, did some wordsmithing, and then the team moved up what we thought was a really good place to be at over to the royal court, as you heard about the 4 queens. And we came up then with a finalized purpose statement as we polished that off. So we know we're all on mute right now, but we're going to invite you to engage in a shared reading. So go ahead and read along as I read along our purpose statement. Word study develops a robust understanding of words and unlocks word parts through inquiry and analysis to promote word recognition and language comprehension.
So hopefully you see some terms in there that are quite familiar to you. As we started working with our 4th and 5th grade teachers, many of them had not heard of the simple view of reading before. And so we brought in a lot of that language, and it felt right to us to build that in to our purpose statement. So then we moved on to our beliefs. What do we believe about word study based on everything that we've learned, based on everything that our students are coming to 4th and 5th grade with? What do we believe that students need to have? And again, we utilized Jamboard to do this. And so we had one Jamboard, and we invited people to put Post-its on the Jamboard of different things that they believe about word study. And then very quickly, I created 4 copies of that same Jamboard. And then we assigned different groups to different boards in the Jamboard. And then we invited everyone to do an open sort. So we knew that similar things would come up in our beliefs. And so you can see this is one of the groups open sort. So we have 2 beliefs about morphemes together. And then we have this sort of cross-curricular hanging out on its own. And then we have lots of Post-its about explicit. We cannot leave this to chance. This can't be something where we're just talking about whatever words happen to be in the text that a student is reading. We also had beliefs about bringing spelling instruction into this and not forgetting about that encoding side of the coin. We really believe in that shared vocabulary, and we wanted to have clarity for each step in 4 and 5 having their own step. We knew that it was important that students have multiple exposures to the words. This is not a once and done kind of thing. And you can see we have 4 stickies there for authenticity. While we know that we want this to be systematic and explicit, that doesn't mean that it has to be totally separate from everything we're doing. We wanted students to have authentic opportunities to experience and dive into the world of words. We wanted to make this motivational and compelling for students, because when we know that when students are bought into the process and bought into the learning, it's much more likely to stick. And then, we had more of that. We needed this to be a system, something that students could sort of a procedure that students could rely on, that when we got to our word learning time, they weren't always trying to learn a new procedure, but there was some consistency in what we were doing. And so we did these sorts. Again, we had lots of conversation. One thing I love about this team is that there's a lot of trust. Linda has done a great job of bringing group agreements in, and knowing that we don't disagree with a person, we discuss ideas. And so it was a very non-threatening experience. And after all of that conversation, we decided that 17 voices may be too many to finalize how our beliefs are going to look. And so we sent this back to the royal court, and the word queens brought back a version of the beliefs and, did a final few little tweaks, and this is what we ended up with. So we believe that word study exploration builds phonemic, orthographic, morphemic, and grammatical understandings of words. We really wanted to make sure that students knew words from all the directions. It's not just enough to see a word, but you have to have that word in your mouth. You have to be able to use that word. You have to be able to understand the meaningful parts of the words. Secondly, word study instruction is explicit and systematic, following a progression that allows content to be revisited over time. So we didn't want this just to be a once and done. We want to be able to help our students consistently go back over what they've already learned, because we know that multiple exposures are so important, especially for some students who may have some slower processing speeds. They're going to need more opportunities to really firm up their understandings. We believe that word study exploration should be authentic to reading, writing, speaking, and listening experiences, growing both expressive and receptive language skills. It's really important to us that students aren't just able to read a word and understand it, but they're able to hear the word and understand it, and then they're able to use it as well. So we wanted to make sure that we are paying attention to both their receptive and expressive uses of these higher level words and word parts. And then we also believe that word study instruction is most effective when informed by multiple assessments. So we want to have assessments at the beginning to help us know what students are coming in knowing, so that we don't spend time teaching them things they already know. We're all pressed for time these days. We need to have really effective formative assessments as we're going through to make sure that learning is actually happening and we're not just teaching things without the learning coming. And then, we want to have checks throughout. And so we really wanted to take some time and sit with these beliefs and try to build the best approach that we could that would meet all of these beliefs. So here's what we did to dig deeper into those beliefs. We used a graphic organizer that you will soon see. And we wanted to first notice and really think about, what are we already doing to address this? One thing that I think happens a lot is when we look to change our practices, we often get stuck in this place of believing that everything we're doing is terrible. And that's not the case. That's not ever the case. And so we really wanted to honor the things that we're already doing to address these beliefs. And then we asked the questions, what do we notice about the belief? What do we wonder about the belief? And what do we need to consider as we move forward in our process? And so here we have the graphic organizer for that belief that we need to know words phonemically, orthographically, morphemically, and grammatically. So currently we were doing some grammar work with mentor sentences. We were doing some instruction with roots and affixes. We were using FCAs. We do some Collins writing in our district. And so if you know about Collins writing, you know about focus correction areas. And we've used some focus correction areas looking at grammar. We were noticing that a lot of our students have a strength in grammar, that a lot of our students are showing a willingness to apply the lower strands of the rope. We've really been working hard with our K-3 teachers to build up that confidence in students, that they are able to look at a word they don't know, work their way the whole way through that word, and try to figure out what that word is. We wondered, how do we know which kids need what? And what does the typical 4th and 5th grade student really need to know? So we wondered, what is our step when it comes to all of this? And then we thought what we need to consider moving forward is building that scope and sequence and really having that clear vertical articulation from where are the students coming from in K3, and then where are they going to when they get to middle school. And then when we talk about explicit and systematic, currently we had foundations in the early grades. We had some 4th and 5th grade students doing things like vocabulary builders, some word work and warm-ups. We had a teacher using pieces of the rewards program. We noticed that primary has a specific curriculum. So what might we be able to learn from that? And then we wondered a lot of things. And we considered how might we revisit without repeating, because there's a difference between revisiting and repeating. And so how do we make those revisiting experiences really valuable for our students? Then, oh, I thought it flipped, but it didn't. Let's try this again. Oh, sorry, too many. Reading, writing, thinking, and listening. So again, we brought up the mentor sentences. We noticed that vocabulary is really standing out and that our students tend to be stronger with reading and writing than they are with speaking and listening. So we were really thinking about how can we even enhance the speaking and listening part when we're looking at how we want to approach this. And we really wanted to consider, again, defining our step, and then consider how does this work in word study support math and science and social studies, because word learning in a vacuum is not fun and it's not going to stick with students. So how can we really incorporate those content areas to have this authentic reading, writing, speaking, and listening experience? And did I miss one? Progression over time. I think we're good. And so Grace is going to take us into our pilot. We've actually gotten to the pilot part. I mean, seriously, we're trying to do something new, and we took all of this time doing all of this foundational work, but we really believe in Mechanicsburg that foundation is what's going to help us to finish strong. And so hopefully you're seeing that as we were going through this and preparing this, we thought, wow, this process in itself is helpful. So hopefully you're finding some helpful things in the process as well, and not simply the specifics to word study. But okay, go ahead, Grace. I don't want to take any more of your thunder.
Yeah, well, to Michelle's point, we really spent a bulk of our year, last school year, building those shared beliefs and the shared purpose statement of what this work is supposed to be for. And I feel like bringing our teams together and having all of our voices included in that process has given us this shared purpose for word learning at our building. And it's really brought us together on the same page. And it's been so important for us all to have that background knowledge about word learning and to be able to support each other with the pilot, which we've been working on this year. So after we crafted those beliefs, it was time for us to explore possible resources that we could use in our instruction to bring those beliefs to life in our classroom. And so we tapped into our teachers' experiences and Michelle's wisdom, and we brought forward 5 different resources to potentially nominate for this piloting process. So again, we kind of tapped into some experts in our building, and we asked those teachers to present a commercial of these different resources. So we had 2 4th grade teachers share, one about the rewards program and one about the Wiley Blevins teaching phonics and word study in the intermediate grades. We also had our reading specialist, Katie, share a little bit about morpheme magic, which she had been trying in some of her intervention groups. And Michelle also brought to us Vocabulary Surge and the word generation program as well. And so they gave kind of these little pitches about each resource and what it had to offer and how it can promote student word learning. And so after these commercials, our colleagues were kind of given some time to peruse these different resources and to see which ones intrigued them further so they could kind of get a sense of what the program really has to offer and how it's structured. So at the end of this session, teachers completed a Google form. And one of the questions in the reflection was just kind of a general, which one of these 5 resources really piqued your interest? And so from our colleagues' responses, we were able to narrow down the resource options to a top 3. And you'll see those starred on your screen. It was really between rewards, vocabulary surge, and morpheme magic that generated the most interest and intrigue from our colleagues. So we know that resources also come with a price tag, and this needs to be justified and approved by our administration. So we really were looking into the financial logistics of each program. And based on the research of the costs and the investment, we didn't find rewards to be a viable candidate for our pilot because it was vastly more expensive than the other resources that we were interested in. And it was mostly due to the student consumable books that were included in that program. So we made it down to 2 resources, Vocab Surge and Morpheme Magic. And I just saw a question and it's Vocabulary Surge A or B. We actually are using Vocabulary Surge Book A with our 4th graders and Book B with our 5th graders. So that's kind of how we split the levels of that resource. And if you're familiar at all with Morpheme Magic, one of the things that we had to kind of work out with that resource is that it's one resource being used by both grade levels. So we worked closely as the 4th and 5th grade team to be able to kind of divvy out which morphemes would be specifically focused on in 4th grade and then 5th grade as well. So you can see on your screen now is the teachers who chose which program that they wanted to pilot. So with Vocabulary Surge, we had 5 grade 4 teachers who were interested and 4 grade 5 teachers who were interested in piloting that program. With Morpheme Magic, we have 2 teachers in 4th grade, myself included, who are piloting Morpheme Magic, and 3 teachers in grade 5. So Linda is going to take it from here, and there you go, Linda.
There we go. I was just like, I need to unmute. So one of the things we want to do is really streamline the process for teachers. So we encourage them to incorporate this into their student learning objective work. And also several of them were on the evaluation cycle for self-directed. So it was a great fit to go ahead and do that. So it wasn't another thing, but really a meaningful thing that they could integrate to their evaluation work as well. We created then a frequently asked questions document. As you can see, it begins with our purpose. And that's so important. So we continually have that North Star in front of us. I've recently shared a quote with staff, when you walk, you know your purpose, your what becomes more important. So we really want to walk in our purpose throughout this process and as we continue to implement. So we have our definition, our purpose, and our belief statements. We really had to think about what are we going to do to evaluate effectiveness of the program. So that was a question we looked at, and we thought about how we have to have the scrapbook approach, multiple snapshots. So we're looking at teacher feedback, we're looking at student assessments, having regular meetings for opportunities to reflect on strengths and weaknesses. And you'll hear a little bit more about that as we continue. Next steps, I think, will be pivoting back to Michelle shortly, and she'll talk about those as we're kind of in an evaluation mid-year process. And then additionally, we have some assessments. Our district's using FastBridge vocabulary and some morphology that'll be completed in the fall and the winter and the spring. and then some paper pencil assessments that Michelle put together to help give us another layer of insight. We also put some logistical things, in place. Those are important. There isn't any question that's too small. So even how are teachers going to receive copies, and when should they expect the students to complete the assessment? Collaborative planning time is so important, especially in going through a pilot, because it is a new learning curve. So we wanted to earmark time and not try to look for time afterwards, but purposely and proactively plan for time. As Grace mentioned earlier, we had some opportunities through Curriculum Connections, and then we have some Act 80 days where we've also earmarked time for that to happen throughout the remainder of the year. Also, it's important to have clarity and expectations. So what's our goal? What's our starting point? And you see, we started about middle of October so that we could really anchor and create a strong foundation before diving in. And then if you notice, our aim was really to teach with as much fidelity as possible so that we could evaluate the true resource. We will talk a little bit later how there has been an opportunity for mid-year reflection for us to discuss, are there some things that we need to tweak here and there to better and to get some feedback along the way. But our goal out of the gate was to really hold close to whatever program we were piloting. There has been and continued to be support from the admin level. So Riley Bear is our assistant principal at Elmwood, and she went into classrooms and taught a series of lessons to get a feel for both programs. And then in my role, I've also been going in to observe in classrooms. I've been in about 12 classrooms to observe lessons so that I could see, the programs interacting in life with our students. And one of the things as I've been going in is that has really stood out is engagement. And when we think about engagement, our minds might go to bells and whistles, and learning can and should be fun. However, it's really more important when we think about engagement to be thinking about minds-on, to be thinking about every student having the opportunity to think, and also an opportunity to make their thinking visible and accountable, be it orally, in writing, through drawing, or performance. So there's been a high level of engagement in those first dozen or so observations.
So I get to talk about our mid-year check-in for our pilot. We had an Act 80 day on January 17th. So that's a day that teachers work, but students do not come to school. So we were able to have some time that day to get together. Grace and Katie put together this great note taker that had our beliefs and our purpose statement listed on it. And we asked teachers just to transact with those beliefs, to make notes, to make their thinking visible on paper, and to really think about how the resource they have been working with either evidences or does not evidence those beliefs, and to consider maybe any modifications that we want to make at this point in the year. Because if there's something in a resource that we know now isn't really working or isn't quite aligned with our beliefs, we don't want to spend the next 5 minutes using it just as it is. So we want to be able to have discussion now and then make some of those modifications as necessary. So we had teachers do that first independently. We also asked them to rate the degree of alignment on a scale from 1 to 5. Independently before they got together. Everyone had to write down their own number. And then I have to share here with you our feedback documents. So everyone took their individual paper together, and then we had group conversation. And so for Morpheme Magic, you can see some of the ways that Morpheme Magic aligned with our word study. The morphemes, that looking at that morphology piece is, it's in the title. So, it's going to be there. There have been some interesting inquiry activities that our teachers have created based off of the morphemes in there. One of the staff members especially said, I'm just learning so much about words. Like, this is a great resource for me. He's like, he geeks out in front of his students, and his students are like, yeah, really. But it's exciting for the teacher just to be learning things that we never realized about our very own language. And then some of the activities in there are aligning with our inquiry-based desires. However, a lot of the activities don't really feel authentic. There's a great paragraph portion that has blanks for students to fill in the word with the morpheme in the paragraph, but the blanks, the words are all in the order of the blanks. So there's not really a lot of thinking involved. And so, we've done some heavy lifting to change that activity up a little bit to make it more meaningful for students and not just mindless say the word that comes next in the list because that's the one that's going to fit. We did notice that, we're looking for something that is sequential, and like Grace mentioned before, Morpheme Magic is not exactly that way. It's got a lot of great resources, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend picking it up and just teaching it from front to back. And so, that didn't quite fit. Doesn't mean it's not a fabulous resource. It is a fabulous resource, but we were just looking for the alignment to our beliefs. And so we were thinking about, how do we want to alter or change anything as we go on? And so we did a lot of talking about that, that connect paragraph. We also talked about maybe activating some background knowledge first so that students can bring everything that they have to the table as they learn. And then maybe some assessments as we go through that to do some more checking in on how much students are actually learning. And then here's vocabulary surge. So it aligns in that definitely explicit teaching. It's systematic. There's a lot of inquiry and analysis. There are opportunities for that reading, writing, speaking, and listening. However, we were looking for that revisit opportunity, and that's not already built in to vocab surge. We didn't have those, regular assessment check-ins to see our students really internalizing what we are teaching. We've noticed that especially in vocab surge B, it's primarily partner activities. So there's not a lot of opportunity for independent accountability if you follow the directions exactly as they are written. It feels like a lot of acquisition to us, and we're looking to acquire and go deeper, acquire and go deeper. And so we're looking to make a couple of maybe little tweaks or some changes. We did notice that to make those manipulatives that we talked about back in the financial aspect, it was a little overwhelming. And so our teachers have digitized those lessons in Google Slides and then push out slides to all the students so that they can manipulate on the computer screen instead of having all of those pieces. We are also looking to build in some more opportunities for some paper pencil work, because we know that reading on the screen is very different than reading and writing on actual paper. And so we don't want to forget about that piece. Trying some spiraling opportunities. This group really liked the word card portion of the Morpheme Magic. And so they're wondering, how can we make those same kind of, on the wall anchor charts for our students? So those are some of the things that we're thinking about. And again, it doesn't mean it's a bad program. It's a great resource. But when we look through the lens of, exactly what we're looking for, we would need to make a few tweaks to that particular resource. And so what's next? That was January 17th. So here we are, February 1st. What's coming next? We're going to continue teaching from these resources, reflecting, evaluating how things are going. We've decided to gather some student input through a Google form. So we're going to design a type 1 writing prompt, if again, Colin's writing language there, so that we can put that out to all the students so that they'll have an opportunity to have, a confidential place where they can write down what they're thinking. We've heard some, verbal feedback from students. One in particular, her dad, who's the assistant superintendent, asked her favorite part of the school day, and she said, word study. And we were very excited about that. Then as the end of the year approaches, we will administer those end of the year assessments and look at that data. We did want to have a paper pencil assessment. I wrote that based off of the format of the word generation assessment, and then using the morphemes in the words that students were going to see in these programs. And one thing we're looking for is there a difference in the amount of transacting with the text and perhaps marking up of words in some way that happens from the beginning of the year to the end of the year? So we didn't want to just have those online FastBridge assessments. We wanted some type of paper pencil thing. And then we'll determine our teaching approach moving forward. So at this point, are we going to move forward next year with morpheme magic for everyone? I don't know. Are we going to move forward with vocab search for everyone? I don't know. Are we going to do some, Mechanicsburg hybrid? I don't know. But it's all very exciting to see what's going to happen. So that's the bulk of what we have so far. I did see a question came through asking about how long did we take to do that pre-work, that foundational teacher learning. It was about a school year, starting from one spring and then over the summer and then the following school year, and then spring was when we started looking at actual resources. But we really took a full calendar year just to help our teachers develop their own knowledge. And we had some teachers who after the second session, they were like, all right, I'm ready to write lessons. I want to go. We were like, I know you're excited and we love that you're excited. And we don't think that our knowledge is developed enough to start writing lesson plans right now. So let's just take some more time to really figure out what we need to know so that we can be the best teachers we can for our students when it comes through. So how many teachers will be impacted? We have 14 teachers and everyone's involved in the pilot. So we were excited that we were able to have the funding to get everybody involved in the pilot so that, everyone feels like they're part of the process and has a voice in that. So we're really excited to have that opportunity. The way we arrange our classes is that we have partner teachers. So we have about 50 students between two teachers, one who teaches ELA and the other who teaches math, science, and social studies, and then they rotate between the two. So, we have 14 teachers, but 28 teachers worth of class sizes. I can't do the math that quickly in my head. I'm a reading person. So I did also see a question come through about the assessments. We haven't crunched numbers yet, although I will tell you that our beginning of the year paper pencil assessment was pretty scary. It was scary. I don't know, Grace, did you want to talk at all about that beginning of the year assessment that we did?
Yeah, I remember giving it to my students way back in September, and there was a portion on the back of the assessment that was basically just match the morpheme to its meaning. And it truly, it definitely gave us some insight into some of those gaps, even just the understanding of what a morpheme is, and that the letter S has a meaning on its own. So kind of building that understanding throughout this year, I feel like has been amazing to see the growth just in their understanding of these different morphemes and the meaningful word parts.
Thank you, Grace. So Pam, thank you for putting that bit.ly link in the chat. When you go there, you'll see a copy of our slides, as well as a blank version of that consensus jigsaw protocol. I love that. That is wonderful. Part of what I love about that is teachers are actually encouraged to write down exactly from the text. So we're modeling, and hopefully you saw a little bit of that tonight too. We always like to model when we do learning activities with our teachers, the kinds of things we think teachers should be doing with students, because, a learner, no matter what their size, needs the same kind of things. So, in the text, it says this, therefore, we are pulling this understanding out of the text. All of those articles that we utilized are unfortunately behind a paywall, which is why I didn't feel comfortable sharing the actual copies of those with you. But if you are a member of International Dyslexia Association, that Perspectives Journal is part of that. So if you add on the literature portion to that membership, you can access all of those articles. Any other questions out there, Pam?
There was a quick question from Mia. If you can see that in the chat, and I'm sure that you guys would be willing to continue to have a conversation. She's also implementing Morphing Magic. So.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So all of our email addresses are up there on the screen. So you can email one of us or all of us, depending who the question might be best for. And this slide is also in that bit.ly link. So if you have that, you can always go there to get our email addresses as well. Please do not hesitate to reach out. You won't be bothering any of us. In the wise words of Jen Hatmaker, a rising tide lifts all the boats. So, this is not a competition. Let's all get better together.
It's so funny you say that, Michelle, because one of the Reading League conferences a few years ago, that was the theme of rising tide lifts all boats, and there was like little, boats, and so it's wonderful that you say that, because National Reading League, that was their focus one of the years of the conference. So thank you so much to you and to Linda and to Grace. We are so grateful, and the amount of time and effort and thought that has gone into the process can only reap benefits, not only just for this important work that you're doing, but all the work that you'll do forward. Just that collaboration and that collective efficacy that I saw Jody put into the chat too. Thank you so much. We're so grateful to have you kick off this series. And Erin is going to share the next in our series with everyone before we close out this evening. So we'll turn it over to her. And again, thank you to Michelle and to Linda and to Grace. We are so grateful. And I heard you say Kate. I think Kate could not be here this evening. Was it Kate?
Correct. She has some
So we're
family
gonna thank her
obligations.
too.
She has 3 littles. So
Yes.
we'll pass along.
Yes, our
your
thanks to her as well. And now we'll turn it over to Erin, and she'll share what's next. And again, thank you so very, very much.
Yeah, thank you to your whole team, Michelle. And I think just the dedication to your planning and thoughtfulness prior to rollout is very I think unique and refreshing. So we're looking forward to the results, and hopefully we can get an update. I also just wanted to notice that there's been a few things in the chat about word connections. Katie shared that. I just actually communicated with the researcher from Texas and Austin, and you can download the whole program for free. So maybe that would be something we could follow up with some educators who have been trying that out. So
Maybe we could invite her too.
yeah, we could invite her to present. Yeah,
Yes.
I was bugging her for the assessment for the multi-syllabic words that
Mhm.
she used in the study. And when she got back to me, she's like, actually, I have it all open source now. And I'm like, wow. So yeah, really cool. So if you would like to support our work here at the Reading League Pennsylvania, we would be happy to accept your donation of support. You can scan the QR code on your screen. It also has been in the chat. And we wanted to share that we have just confirmed that our friend and colleague, Dr. Julie Klingerman, will be presenting on DIY morphology. So kind of a spinoff from our topic. She was a presenter at the national conference, and we'll be sharing it with our small group. So she's going to share some research-based resources and some tips and tricks to teach morphology on your own if you don't have a big district initiative to roll out something collaboratively. So, oh, thank you, Alicia. Julie's a great friend and very passionate about intermediate grades and older students who struggle to read, but this will be fitting for everyone. So we hope you can join us on March 15th, same time, same Zoom link, and we will hopefully see you there. We appreciate it. We're so excited that we had almost 50 people joining us tonight. And we
Yeah.
just want to give a shout out to National as well. One way to stay current is to join our national chapter for the Reading League. And they also are offering research to practice journal publications that you can purchase. So they really are trying to bridge research to practice, and it's an excellent source of continued learning. So that's all I have, Pam.
Okay, all right. On behalf of the board, Don Brookhart and Erin Amy, Jody Jackson, Amy Sell, Michelle Trostle, and our two board members, Chris Lay and Megan Gierka, who could not be with us this evening, we would thank you once again for joining us, and we hope that you join us again on March 15th. This recording will be posted to our Facebook page in the very near future, and we'll be pushing it out on social media, so you'll be aware of that as well. Please share it with friends. And once again, thank you to the Mechanicsburg Area School District team, Michelle and Laura and Grace, and of course, Katie, who could not be here. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening. I'm gonna stop the recording, actually. There you go.